In the ongoing US-China trade standoff, Beijing is opting for strategic patience. While the Trump administration initially imposed tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese goods, intense negotiations brought that number down to around 30%. Interestingly, Trump has saved his sharpest tariff actions for allies like Canada, Mexico, and India, even as he now openly quotes President Xi Jinping, floating the idea of a Beijing visit. Recent U.S. decisions like blocking Taiwan's president from transitioning through American cities are being interpreted as subtle peace offerings aimed at calming tensions with Beijing. Despite targeting China, U.S. tariffs are hitting American businesses hard. A recent policy shift to include copper-based imports like pipes and wires is expected to raise costs for U.S. manufacturers. China exports about $186 million worth of these products to America annually. Experts warn that downstream American industries will absorb most of the tariff impact. Apple alone has projected an additional $1.1 billion in tariff-related costs this quarter. Other major firms are also flagging price hikes. Economists and the Federal Reserve remain cautious, with inflationary pressures expected to build as companies pass on these costs to consumers. Beyond tariffs, China holds powerful leverage through its control of over 85% of the global rare earths refining market. This has set off alarms in Washington, where lawmakers are now scrambling to develop alternatives. At the same time, experts warn of rising origin laundering. Chinese goods are increasingly rebranded as made in Vietnam or Cambodia to evade U.S. duties, while Washington announces symbolic trade pacts with the EU or South Korea. Beijing remains unmoved, watching the U.S. juggle internal pressures and global expectations while maintaining its long game. And for more on these developments, with us is Colin Chong Yu Keat, Foreign Affairs and Security Strategist, University of Malaya from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Thanks very much for being here. I have to begin by asking you for your interpretation of what seems to be the shift in tone against China from the Trump administration, from the high decibel threats to the diplomatic outreach now.
Yes, one can argue so, but realities on the ground suggest otherwise. We have seen some, denials from, parties within the Trump administration that there's no, objection or no, this kind of displeasure on the visit by Lai. And of course, also we have seen how some analysts have stated that this will be the period where it's a cooling down period. And of course, Trump would have wanted President Xi to also has his own leverage and bargaining cards, but I don't think so, because we have seen also how the momentum of the tariff impact is now on the side of Washington. And based on the recent trade deals and the tariff deals with most countries on earth, including of course with India and also nations on Southeast Asia, the returns from tariff have now started to fill up the coffers of the Washington insiders, and in terms of the economic returns to the US. And I don't see that happening as to why and how Trump will need to have this kind of strategic patience with Beijing now. Of course, initially he will have wanted Beijing to do more on his part to persuade Moscow to tone down on its actions in Ukraine, but we don't see that happening now with the recent strategic moves on the joint drills and all that. And this will be the best timing for Trump to use these new tariff deals that he has managed to get with these different nations. And of course, initially he wanted to send a message across the board that no allies will be safe from these tariff moves, including Canada, India, Australia, and European nations. And but now we have seen how the shifts have started to bring back the benefits to US in many other ways, and of course also to, most importantly, to his base and to the American people at large, with the lowering of prices and the intent also to lower prices across the board on essential items.
Right. Do you believe that Trump's tougher stance on allies like Canada, India, Japan, while in a way softening towards China, is a deliberate strategy, or would you say that this is somewhat reactive recalibration?
It's a mixture of both. As as I've stated that initially, of course, this is being used as as a new opening, sort of an olive branch, as an olive branch to Beijing, to ensure that he has now more capacity. President Xi will have more capacity to use that to ensure that he himself will reciprocate in terms of using his own leverage with Putin, and to ensure that Trump will have the entire comprehensive and multifaceted approach to ensure that he will have this greater leverage with regards to the dialogue and negotiations with Putin. But we have yet to see the results of this move, and of course also Trump will have greater capacity and openings to use the other strategic methods, and this is one of them. And but we don't see that happening yet. We don't see yet the returns of this the so-called softening on China and on President Xi's options. And instead, Beijing has retaliated by increasing its own friendshoring and defense and economic friendshoring efforts, not only with the region, but also trying to send a very strong message to Washington that despite all the moves, Beijing will have greater options, and of course now trying to to repair ties with India and trying to also to form a new economic alliance, taking into account how Trump has treated our traditional U.S. allies, including Canada and India, and and of course also with Putin. So I don't think that the extent of this impact of this new maneuver will work, and Trump knows best on how to use his tariff card, and of course also the importance of the security dependence and defense dependence on America's current allies, and also new nations across the region who are fearful of Chinese actions, to also traditionally and ultimately depend on the U.S. as the main economic and defense umbrella for these nations.
Right. Let me also ask you, with Apple projecting $1.1 billion in added costs and other multinationals also flagging price hikes, what is the real-time impact, according to you, of the tariffs on corporate America?
As Trump has argued in the past, that the returns to the U.S. and of course ultimately the returns to the American people will be far greater. And in terms of this, of course, also to corporate America, to the institutions, companies, now we have seen the impact, the positive impact of the tariff reset in terms of how nations across the world who are trying to negotiate better tariff deals have now pledged to invest more in the U.S. And of course, this American companies have now also been given a new lifelines in terms of not being overly dependent on the Chinese market. Now that we have seen the slowing down of the Chinese economy and the exodus of top institutions and companies away from China, and of course investing back in America, and of course also in terms of the different policies being exerted by the Trump administration in terms of especially on tax exemption and and zero tax on companies investing in American on American shore. Also, of course, in terms of this bureaucratic reduction in terms of building up new companies or institutions, and in turn will also give better job opportunities to the American people. So this is what this base wanted, to invest back in America to ensure that jobs are being returned to the country, and of course in line with that also investments, resources, key critical minerals, supply chain, and of course also revenues will come back to the country. And of course also we have seen how nations on their part who want better tariff deals have also pledged to buy more American products and more American services, and this will in line and in turn benefit corporate America as a whole. So I don't see that as a long-term kind of loss to corporate America, but instead it will signal a new reset and a new beginning of greater returns ahead, not only to corporate America, but of course also to the American people, and as a gift from Trump to fulfill his promise to his MAGA base, but ultimately to the entire different segments and layers of the American people at large.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.